أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي رب زدني علما اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد النبي الأمي وعلى آله وأصحابه وبارك وسلم. Today we are going to start with verse number 46 of Surah Ibrahim, that is Abraham, which is the 14th chapter of the Quran. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. وَقَدْ مَكَرُوا مَكْرَهُمْ وَعِنْدَ اللَّهِ مَكْرُهُمْ وَإِنْ كَانَ مَكْرُهُمْ لِتَزُولَ مِنْهُ الْجِبَالُ. They schemed, but God had a counter scheme for their plots, even though their plots were powerful enough to make the mountains move. Now, whenever this word makar is used in the Quran, for the unbelievers, the disbelievers, it is translated as mostly as plotting, something undesirable. And when God replies to it, then that is called his planning. So here it is said that they schemed, that is the unbelievers scheme, but God had a counter scheme for their plots, even though their plots were powerful enough to make the mountains move. This means that God knows what they are plotting about. And that is mostly to harm the prophets and to make people move away from the prophets and not come to believe in them. And also he knows the recompense for it. Even their greatest plot cannot supersede the plan and will of God. This is said by Zamakhshari. And according to Zamakhshari also, the mountains, the word mountains used here is a metaphor for God's signs, such as the Sharia and his prophecy, because they are firmly Sharia and the prophecy and the prophethood and everything that goes along with it is firmly rooted like mountains, and the unbelievers cannot dislodge it. Therefore, the disbelievers will not be able to alter the truth. فَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ مُخْلِفَ وَعْدِهِ رُسُلَهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَزِيزٌ ذُو انْتِقَامٍ. Do not imagine that God will go back on his word which he had given to his messengers. Indeed, God is the all-powerful, the Lord of retribution. So here it is being said, and this is said very often in the Quran, that God's promise is always true, because divine nature does not change. And mukhlifa here, فَلَا تَحْسَبَنَّ اللَّهَ mukhlifa, this means one who breaks a promise. But God is not one who breaks his promise. He might change his decision by forgiving somebody, but the promise is always there. Do not imagine that God will go back on his promise, on his word. This is said to be the promise given to the prophets, that they would be saved. This is a promise which is always there, which has always been there, that all the prophets were promised that no matter what kind of difficulty they went through, they would be saved and they would be helped. And they would be helped against their persecutors. And indeed, God is the all-powerful, the Lord of retribution, Zu Intiqam. That is the one who can take a revenge. يَوْمَ تُبَدَّلُ الْأَرْضُ غَيْرَ الْأَرْضِ وَالسَّمَاوَاتُ وَبَرَزُوا لِلَّهِ الْوَاحِدِ الْقَهَّارِ. The day this earth will be replaced with another, as well as the skies, all will have to be present before God, the unique one, the dominator. So what is the day when this earth will be replaced with another? This is the day of judgment, the last day. Because on that day it is said that the whole of the cosmic order will be overturned. But it is also said that the fundamental substance will remain unaltered and only the attributes will be changed. According to Karam Shah, no one knows whether the change will be in substance or in the attributes. And Imam Razi says that there are two forces in human beings. First is the force of sight, and the second is the force of action, of amal. In both these lies the secret of that person's success. The first, that is the force of sight, is to learn the truth, especially the highest truth. That is, the highest truth is that of God, and that God is one. And the second is the force of action, that is to acquire and to try to get the best values. And the best is to train oneself to obey God. And both these are acquired through the Quran, through the learning of the Quran. وَتَرَى الْمُجْرِمِينَ يَوْمَئِذٍ مُقَرَّنِينَ فِي الْأَصْفَادِ. The day this earth will be replaced with another, as well as the skies, all will have to be present before God, the unique one, the dominator. So, yes, we just read this. The fact that everyone will have to stand in front of God means that there will be accountability on that day. Standing in front of God means to be present, to be able to answer for all the deeds that one has committed committed in this world. So this will be in fact, the importance of believing in the last day or the day of judgment is because of the accountability. If one believes in the last day and in the day of judgment, then one knows that he is going to be accountable for all his deeds in this world. But somebody who does not believe in it will not be bothered about improving himself or about developing himself. وَتَرَى الْمُجْرِمِينَ يَوْمَئِذٍ مُقَرَّنِينَ فِي الْأَصْفَادِ. You will see the criminals that day tied up in chains. And the criminals, of course, are the disbelievers or the sinners. And we have pointed out earlier that the word criminal, mujrimeen, is used in the Quran as being synonymous with the sinners or disbelievers, because the law of God or the law of the Quran is only one. So it's the same thing whether one is a sinner or one is a criminal. This word here, muqarranina fil asfad, that means tied up in chains. According to Karam Shah, that means that they will be tied to one another. And according to Muhammad Asad, it means there will be a chain reaction of evil deeds, which the criminals will be involved in, or they have been involved in. The question here is whether the difference between criminal and sinner is established in this world as well, or it will be established only on the day of judgment. The answer is that even in this world, one is supposed to follow the law of the Quran. And according to the law of the Quran, the criminal is the same as the sinner, one who has disobeyed the law of God. Does that answer your question? Well, that of course will come under the law. The law will describe what punishment is to be given for what. But the term sinner and criminal amounts to the same, whether it's this. I'll give you an assignment. Now you keep observing as we keep on reading how the word mujrimeen is used for a criminal or a sinner, and then we can compare it. Sarabilum min qatiranium wa taksha wujuhahum an-nar. Their clothes will be of pitch and the fire will cover their faces. This is a description of the great punishment, the intense punishment that will be given to the sinners or the unbelievers. And because of the extreme scorching of the fire, their clothes will become like pitch or like coal tar, and the fire will cover their faces. There will be nothing but fire in hell. This reminds me of an anecdote which I found a little interesting, that in the old days you didn't have matchsticks and you didn't have stove lighters. So they used to borrow the burning embers and to start their own fire. Just like Musa alayhis salam, when he was leaving Madian with his family, and it was cold at night, and he said, I'll just go and see if I can find some embers and I can see some fire on the mountain. So he had actually been going to borrow some embers when he was called by God. So in a similar manner, there was this woman who wanted to light a fire. It was quite late, and she said to her son, get me some burning coals, get me some embers. And so he went around the whole neighborhood and he said, no one has a fire burning. All the fires have been put out. So she was so frustrated, she said, why don't you go to hell and get some fire from there? So it is said that he went to hell, and there he was told there is no fire in hell. Everyone brings his own fire. So I thought that was a bit interesting, because everyone will be burning in remorse because of one's deeds. So that could be the meaning of this anecdote. لِيَجْزِيَ اللَّهُ كُلَّ نَفْسٍ مَا كَسَبَتْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ سَرِيعُ الْحِسَابِ. So that God might requite each soul for what it has earned. Indeed, God is quick at taking account. So, since God is not unjust, therefore people will receive what they deserve for what it has earned. Each soul will requite what it has earned. Whatever it has done in this world, both in belief and in deed, that is what he will be either rewarded for or he will be punished for it. And indeed, God is quick at taking account. This concept is also stated in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse number 202, and Surah Al-Imran, verse number 19. هَذَا بَلَاغٌ لِلنَّاسِ وَلِيُنْذِرُوا بِهِ وَلِيَعْلَمُوا أَنَّمَا هُوَ إِلَٰهٌ وَاحِدٌ وَلِيَذَكَّرَ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ. This is a message for all humanity, so that they may be warned thereby, and that they might learn that He is the only deity, and that the wise might reflect on it. Now, this is a message, Balaghul Linnasi, message is referring to the Quran. It can also mean a narration for all humanity. Balaghul linnas. Nas means humanity, all of humanity, not just the believers. So these statements like these make us believe that the Quran is meant not just for the believers, but it is meant for all humanity. Therefore, it is a universal message. And the Prophet is also a universal prophet. And this is why he is the final prophet. And there is no need for any more prophets to be sent after him. So this is for all humanity, so that they might be warned thereby and that they might learn that he is the only deity. So warned about what? Warned that if they do not follow the prophets, then there will be severe punishment. The warning is given. That is why all the prophets have been called Nazir. Nazir means a warner, somebody who warns in good time. And also that they might learn that he is the only deity. So the purpose of revealing the Quran, the main purpose, is to teach the highest truth, and that is that to learn that God is the only one who can be worshipped. He is the only deity. And that the wise might reflect on it. وَلِيَذَكَّرُوا ulul albab. Ulul albab, normally in translations one finds, they say the wise or those with intellect and so on. But actually, you will find this is a term which one could speak for, maybe one went into all the details. One could take a whole session on just this term, ulul albab. This has been explained by several people, like a Sufi Sheikh Nurjan Mirhamadi. He heads a large international Sufi order, and he says the ulul albab are the gatekeepers of the reality. The reality, of course, the reality of God mainly, and then from that all the other things that we have been taught by the prophets. This he writes in his book called A Timeless Reality. Then there are other writers who have spoken about this ulul albab. Some say that it means the inner soul, somebody who has a developed inner soul, and there is no real spirituality without belief in God and the Prophet. And even if some people do claim to have some spirituality, then it is not the highest and the purest spirituality. So this is a spiritual perspective. Those who are the ulul albab have a spiritual perspective and a sense of life that settles in that person. And they have this special ability that from religion they learn, understand, and then they act according to it. And their priorities become different. They become more loving than others. They become more caring about people and all the creatures. And also they are on the path to reach the pinnacle of the highest level of character. And they share the hopes, love, and almost everything that they have with other people who are lacking in these things. Now, this term ulul albab has been mentioned about 16 times in the Quran. And those who are ulul albab, those with spiritual intelligence, it is also called spiritual intelligence, they have these characteristics that they think deeply. They think about themselves, about the cosmos, about the sun, the moon, the change in the weather, in nature, and about the great design and the power behind everything in nature. That is God's design and His power. Then they also observe the events. Therefore, they believe in that everything, whatever happens, is done according to a plan. They also understand the chemistry of life. They learn from oneself and from others. And they also learn from the trials they go through. They do not complain, see, I'm suffering so much. No, they always say, if I'm undergoing a trial, it is from God, and I have to see what I can learn from it. And it is said that there have been some very elevated spiritual personalities. Whenever they were tried with some difficulty, they would thank God for it. And they would say, thank God, God has not forgotten us. Because that can be a means of progressing further and developing spiritually. And these people also know that whatever is seen is superficial. What you can just see with your eyes, the obvious, the material, it is superficial and it carries great depth. They believe that behind the complex plan of the cosmos, there is a being with a capital B, who wants to teach the creatures, and they also think about the being. And also, of course, they know that life is only a journey to reach the great being, and they keep analyzing their actions to see if what they did was good or bad, true or false, or if it could have been done in a better way. Life is a journey. I always like to compare this with if you have traveled in a train, you see how the train you're sitting with some passengers, they are your fellow passengers, and then the train stops at a station and some will get off and some will get on. So we were talking about the ulul albab, that is the people who have spiritual intelligence, and they share everything they have without any greed or without any thought of being repaid. And they also see a reflection of the Creator in creation. That is, the attributes of the creatures reflect the attributes of the Creator. The ulul albab are also relation builders, which is known in Quran as those who do sila rahmi. That is, they join the relationships, they keep them intact, they have mercy. They do not burn in jealousy and they forgive easily. They are not hard-hearted and they pay others' rights and dues. So we were talking about life being a journey, and I was saying that I like the metaphor of a journey in a train. If you have experienced a train journey, how it stops at every station and some people get off and some people get on. And this is what happens in life, that one keeps meeting new people and then some people keep leaving your life or your company. And you go on and on until you reach the end of your destination, and then you also get off. So this life is only a journey to reach this. The destination is to reach God. So the ulul albab also keep analyzing their actions. We said that they also share everything they have without any greed or any greed for recompense. They see a reflection of the Creator in the creation. That is, the attributes of the creatures reflect the attributes of the Creator. Then the ulul albab are relation builders. They believe in sila rahmi. That is, they keep the relationships joined and intact, and they have mercy. And they do not burn in jealousy and they forgive easily. They are not hard-hearted and they pay other people's rights and dues. So the ulul albab have a high reach in spirituality and intelligence, wisdom and foresight, and they always want to give and not to take from other people. So these are some of the brief points about the ulul albab, and maybe if it is possible sometime we can have a longer session on the ulul albab. We're going to start the new surah Al-Hijr. That is the 15th surah or chapter of the Quran. The title of the surah literally means a rocky tract, a place which is very rocky. And this word is mentioned in ayat number 80. And it refers to a place by that name where the Thamud, to whom Prophet Salih a.s. had been sent as a messenger, they dwelt in Hijr. This surah is supposed to have been revealed towards the very end of Prophet Muhammad's time in Makkah. And the underlying theme of this period is God's creative activity and the sending of guidance through revelation of the Quran. And in verse 9, the most important statement is made about God's taking upon himself the responsibility of preserving the Quran. Then there are also arguments for the oneness of God, prophethood, and the Quran's revelation being a revelation from God. And the creation of human beings, that is the beginning with Adam, is also given in some detail. This is also one of the 6 surahs. In fact, it is the last of the 6 surahs which begin with Alif Lam Ra. These are the words, the huruf al-muqatta'at, which means the disjointed letters. They are consonants, they do not have any vowel in them, and they do not make a recognizable word. And some people have to try to explain the meaning of these huruf muqatta'at, but most scholars say that since God and His Prophet have not revealed this to us, we should not get into it because we could be doing something incorrect. And it is also said that this is supposed to be a secret between God and His Prophet. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alif Lam Ra Tilka Ayatul Kitabi wa Quranim Mubin. Alif Lam Ra, these are the verses of the book, the clear Quran. So the clear Quran, Quran Mubin, means that the Quran is clear in itself, and also it makes so many concepts, it makes them clear, clarifies the concepts. And also the Quran clearly distinguishes between the right and the wrong. So its light is illuminating all aspects of human life. Rubama yawaddul lazina kafaru law kanu muslimin. How much the unbelievers will wish that they were Muslims surrendering to God. I'd also like to point out that here we are starting with part 14. Part means the 30 parts of the Quran, the juz in Arabic, part in English, and in other languages they're known as para or separa. So we are now almost getting to the 50% mark. So how much the unbelievers will wish that they were Muslims surrendering to God. So when are they going to wish this? This is a prediction about the state of regret the unbelievers will be in on the day of resurrection. Or some scholars think that this regret will be at the time of their death, and also some scholars think that this is at the time of the defeat which they suffered in several battles. Zarhum yakulu wa yatamattabu wa yulhihimul amalu fasawfa ya'lamun. Leave them to eat and drink and enjoy life, deceived by false hopes. They will soon come to know. Leave them means the theme of leaving disbelievers in a state of rebellion is repeated very often and several times in the Quran. You can find this in Surah Al-An'am, verse number 91 and 112 and 137. So God lets them wander about in their state. This is also stated in Surah Baqarah, verse 15, and in Surah Al-An'am, verse number 110, and so many other verses. So does this apply to leave them alone and they will soon come to know? That means they will be regretful, they will be punished. This is done when their time of reprieve is over. God gives every human being and every nation a certain amount of time to come to believe and to stop and being antagonistic to the prophets and to the book and to the concept of the one God. But when their time of reprieve is over, then it is said, leave them to eat and drink. That means to enjoy life, and they are deceived by false hopes. What is the false hope about? The false hope of not being accountable. They think that they will not have to answer for their beliefs and deeds, that there will be no day of judgment. This is a false hope. And even if there is, their idols that they worship will save them. And this is also known as tul al-amal, that is overconfidence. And according to Hazrat Ali, Karamallahu Wajhu, this makes people forget the hereafter. When they do not believe in accountability, then they naturally do not believe in the hereafter. وَمَا أَهْلَكْنَا مِنْ قَرْيَةٍ إِلَّا وَلَهَا وَكِتَابٌ مَعْلُومٌ مَا تَسْبِقُ مِنْ أُمَّةٍ أَجَلَهَا وَمَا يَسْتَأْخِرُونَ. We did not destroy any habitation except at its predetermined time of doom. So that means it does not mean that God has already decided which nation is going to be doomed or punished or destroyed, but God has given them a certain time to correct themselves. So when the reprieve is over, of course, then the time comes for them to be doomed. Yes, the question is that وَمَا أَهْلَكْنَا مِنْ قَرْيَةٍ, that we did not destroy any habitation. Qarya has been translated in various ways. In this translation that is being spoken about, it says nation. Now, nation does not mean the concept of a nation state is a modern concept. One could have a nation within a nation. For example, some large ethnic group would call itself a nation within a greater nation, and so on. Now, Qarya has also been translated as a village, a habitation, a nation, a people, a people who are recognized by their common characteristics. So we did not destroy any habitation except at its predetermined time. So people, it would mostly mean people who have similar beliefs, because if they are being destroyed, then it means they have similar beliefs, and their deeds have also been similar accordingly. مَا تَسْبِقُ مِنْ أُمَّةٍ أَجَلَهَا وَمَا تَسْتَأْخِرُونَ. No nation can either hasten or delay its term. That means no one can change this time of doom. They can't say, all right, this has been related several times in the Quran, that when people will be caught, then they will say, please give us some more time and let us go back to the world, and this time people act differently. But the Quran also says that if they were sent back, they would do exactly what they had done the first time. وَقَالُوا يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِي نُزِّلَ عَلَيْهِ الذِّكْرُ إِنَّكَ لَمَجْنُونَ. They said, you to whom the reminder has been revealed, you are insane. The Quran has been translated in various ways. Here it is called the Dhikr. and which can also mean a reminder. Also, take note of the word zikr. Zikr also has a lot of various, meanings and shades of meanings. And here it means the Quran. Sometimes our prayers are also called zikr because we are remembering God in that prayer. So here these unbelievers are being quoted. They said, "You to whom the reminder has been revealed, you are insane." This is one of the things that they call the prophets, not just Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, but so many other prophets were also called insane because mostly they were people who had been living amongst them. They were people from their own nation. And then one day they would get up and say, "I'm a prophet sent by God, and this book that I'm reciting to you has also been revealed to me through an angel from heaven." So this thing they were not ready to believe so easily. So they would call them all kinds of names, and one of the names they would use for these prophets was that they were insane. They were crazy. The word Majnoon has been translated here as insane. Majnoon means one who is, literally it means one who is possessed by a jinn. And when a person is possessed by a jinn, they say that he loses his self-control or loses control over his mind, and then he's not aware of what he's doing. He acts like an insane person. So they called the prophets Majnoon. Several other prophets were also accused of the same things, like Nuh alayhi salam in Surah Al-Qamar, verse number 8, I think, or is it 2? And Musa alayhi salam in Surah Shura, verse number 27. And also in a general sense, they always thought that the prophets were not talking any sense. And they would keep mocking the prophets. And even if they were sent back, they would never, they would not have believed. So, Lo ma ta'tina bil malaikati in kunta minas sadiqeen. Why do you not bring the angels to us if you are truthful? This was also a common demand of the disbelievers and similarly of the Makkans. And they said, if you have been appointed a prophet from heaven, from God, then why has not an angel been sent with you? Actually, the angel was coming to Prophet Muhammad ﷺ all the time, in fact, to all the prophets, but they could not be seen, the angels could not be seen by ordinary people. And also, one of the demands they had made earlier was that why were angels not sent as prophets? And the answer to that in the Quran is that if angels had been sent as prophets, then people would have said, you are an angel, you can do all these things that you're asking us to do, but we can't follow you because you're not a human being. We are human beings. So this is why, besides that, if they were to see an angel in its true form, we think of angels as looking very innocent. They are innocent, but their appearance is not innocent, and normal human beings would not be able to bear the appearance of a real angel. So they kept mocking the prophets and they kept coming up with all kinds of demands which they knew would not be fulfilled. Ma nunazzilu malaikata illa bil haqqi wa ma kanu izam munzarin. We do not send down angels except for the purpose of punishing the rebellious, after which they will not be given any respite. Illa bil haqqi. Now, haqq means something which is true. So, or something which will happen, or something which, the consequence of something. So, if here the Quran, we do not send down angels except for the purpose of punishing the rebellious, which is the truth. Because we had told them earlier that this is what was going to happen to them. So the angels come to punish those who have been rebellious. And after this, they will not be given any respite. That is, there will be no extension in the time. And when the immediate punishment comes, as we have read of so many nations in the Quran, that is an immediate punishment, and it brings about total destruction. Inna nahnu nazzalna zikra wa inna lahu lahafizun. Indeed, we have sent down the reminder, and indeed we are going to preserve it. Now, there is consensus that this is referring to the Quran. In Nazzalna zikra, that means we have revealed, we have sent down the zikr, that is the Quran. Here it has been called a reminder, and indeed we are going to preserve it. So there is this, from this verse it has been concluded that God is going to, or God has protected the Quran from being corrupted. And in the Arabic, we are going to preserve it. That is, inna la hafizun. Hafiz is one who protects and preserves. And of course, there is consensus that God has taken upon himself the responsibility of preserving the text of the Quran from being corrupted. And the text has been preserved for over 14 centuries. And the memorability of the Quran makes it possible to memorize the whole book. The one who has preserved it by memorizing it, we know, is also known as a Hafiz. The memorability of the Quran is seen in the fact that young children and even mostly those who do not even know the language, they are able to memorize this big book. Every believer also has to memorize some parts and parts of for the purpose, reciting them in the prayers, in the obligatory prayers. So we know that because the Quran is so easily accessible to the memory, it is so easily memorizable, therefore this is one way in which the Quran is preserved. For example, someone has given this example that if all the books in the world were taken and burnt, then the Quran would still survive. How? In the hearts of the Huffaz. And also we know that God has taken measures to preserve this book because it's the last revelation sent to the final prophet. And we know that it is said, Al-Yawma Akmaltu Lakum Deenakum. God has said this in Surah Al-Ma'idah, because if the deen, the religion has been completed, it has been finalized and it has been perfected, then there is no more need for another book or another prophet. Now, they say that even some very anti-Islam Orientalists like William Moore admit that the Quran that we have today was preserved since the time of the Prophet ﷺ. This he has stated in his book, The Life of Muhammad. وَلَقَدْ أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ قَبْلِكَ فِي الشِّيَعِ الْأَوَّلِينَ. We sent messengers before you to the earlier groups. Who are the earlier groups? In this surah, Hazrat Ibrahim, Hazrat Lut, that is Lot, and Shuaib, is Jethro, and Saleh. From verses 51 to 84, all these prophets have been mentioned in the surah. And all these prophets were mocked by their people, but the people were destroyed for their mockery. Because this was a great sin that they were committed, that they were mocking or trying to harm or put barriers in the way of the prophet who is appointed by God. And the Prophet Muhammad was also mocked. This we have read in verse number 6. And the punishments that were given to the former nations are also mentioned in this surah. وَمَا يَأْتِهِمْ مِنْ رَسُولٍ إِلَّا كَانُوا بِهِ يَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. But there never came to them a messenger whom they did not ridicule. That means each and every one of the messengers, the prophets, were made fun of by the disbelievers. Because they disbelieved, because they were misguided, and they made fun of the prophet, and they said the things you're talking about can't be possible. كَذَلِكَ نَسْلُكُهُ فِي قُلُوبِ الْمُجْرِمِينَ. This is how we make disbelief to enter the hearts of the criminals. Here we come across the word mujrimeen, that is the criminals. So what is the crime that they are committing? They are committing the crime of disbelief. This is how we make disbelief to enter the hearts of the criminals. Now, why does God make disbelief to enter the hearts of the criminals? This is because they, again and again, I would like to repeat the same concept, that God does not make some people disbelieve and some people believe, but He gives them a choice and He gives them a time limit. So when the time limit is over, then disbelief enters their heart, and then they are misguided and they mock the prophets and they believe in idolatry. And this is a kind of a rebounding. Since they were mocking the prophet, then the evil of that deed is going to harm themselves. لا يؤمنون به وقد خلت سنة الأولين. They will not believe in it as the accounts of the former peoples show. So when we read of the former prophets and of the former peoples, it is well known that they will not believe in it as the accounts of the former peoples show. So this is also mentioned in Surah Al-Anfal, verse number 38. وَلَوْ فَتَحْنَا عَلَيْهِمْ بَابًا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ فَظَلُّوا فِيهِ يَعْرُجُونَ لَقَالُوا إِنَّمَا سُكِّرَتْ أَبْصَارُنَا بَلْ نَحْنُ قَوْمٌ مَسْحُورُونَ. If we had opened the gates of the skies on them and they kept climbing it the whole day, they would have said, our eyes have been put into a trance. In fact, we are a people subjected to sorcery. So even if the heavens had been opened up to the unbelievers, and even if they had been allowed to climb up and to see everything for themselves, these people, now who are these people? Who is the they referring to? They are those who asked that the Prophet should come with angels in verse 7 that we have just read. So even if they kept climbing the whole day, they would still have said, that our eyes have been bewitched. There's, in fact, we are a people subjected to sorcery. Mashurun, sahar is magic, sorcery, and this is what they would have blamed the prophets for doing. Similar accusations were brought against Hazrat Musa, that's Moses, Jesus, Hazrat Isa, and other prophets. And this is also mentioned in Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 110. وَلَقَدْ جَعَلْنَا فِي السَّمَاءِ بُرُوجًا وَزَيَّنَّاهَا لِلنَّاظِرِينَ. Indeed, we made the constellations and decked the sky with them for people to see. Now, these are some of the things that have been created in nature by God. And if a person thinks about them without any prejudice, then he will realize that this cannot be the work of any other creature or the result of an accident. Now, the word buruj has been translated in various ways. It can mean a castle or a fort or a palace or even constellation, something which is in a high place and which is visible to all. It also means to make manifest or exhibit. It also means the stars which are obvious and the signs of the zodiac, which were developed by the Greeks. So all these things can come under the word burj, or the plural is buruj. So here it is said that we made the constellations and decked the sky with them. So the sky is decorated with all these stars and constellations and planets and what have you for people to see. And also in days gone by, people used to work out their direction of travel from the stars. وَحَفِظْنَاهَا مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ رَجِيمٍ. And we have preserved it from every condemned devil. Now, it is said that the Satans, they tried to get information from the heavens by trying to go up and give that information to the fortune tellers. This is mentioned in Surah Safat, verses 6 to 10. And divining, according to Muhammad Asad, the divining the future through astrology is condemned in Islam. And also it is said that God has protected the secrets of the earth from being discovered by these shayateen. إِلَّا مَنِ اسْتَرَقَ السَّمْعَ فَاتْبَعَهُ شِهَابٌ مُبِينٌ. Except for the one who steals up to listen and is chased away by a bright flame. Now, the devils or those jinn who are followers of Satan or Shaitan, who dare to try and eavesdrop by moving close to the heavens, they are chased away by the flame of the shooting star. Symbolically, it could refer to those who practice divination or the occult. I remember as children, whenever we saw a shooting star in the sky, we were told, pray La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah, because the Shaitan is being hit by a flame. Shihabun Mubin is the bright flame, and sometimes in the Quran it is called a Shihab-i-Saqib, and this is a broken star from the solar system. Wal-arda madadnaha wal-qayna fiha rawasiya wa-ambatna fiha min kulli shay'in mawzoon. As for the earth, we spread it out and fixed it by means of firm mountains and grew in it everything according to a balance. Mountains, the hills and the mountains have also been called pegs in the Quran, and they are supposed to keep the earth in its place. Spread it out, and then the pegs hold it in place. And grew in it everything according to a balance. Now the balance is the scale of God's wisdom. That is, God knows exactly how big, how small, or what kind of looks every little thing, every little creature is supposed to have. And there is a wisdom in everything, behind everything that has been created. وَجَعَلْنَا لَكُمْ فِيهَا مَعَايِشَ وَمَنْ لَسْتُمْ لَهُ بِرَازِقِينَ. We provided for you in it means of livelihood, as well as for those whom you cannot sustain. We provided for you in it, that means in the earth, means of livelihood have been provided. That is how everyone is able to survive. And this of course means food and drink through which people maintain life. This is also stated by Qurtubi. As well as for those whom you cannot sustain. Who are the people or creatures that we cannot sustain? They are like the cattle and the beasts of burden. Then also dependence. Everyone does not always support or provide for one's dependents. Sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. Then there are the birds and the cats and the dogs and other animals who roam about freely. We don't provide for them, but everywhere you find that these creatures are alive and they're able to find their provisions some way or the other. You look at a bird and it's pecking at this little, at this plot of dust or dirt, and this is something that we couldn't possibly think of taking into our mouth, but the bird is able to find its food in that dirt. Then also those relatives whom you do not help out. Then according to Zamakhshari, even when they think they are providing for someone, then even then actually God is the real provider and provides for all. That means even when we think this is the money we earned and we are giving it to so many people, well, actually, if God had wished, you would not have had that money. So actually, God is providing you with the provision which you are sharing. But of course, sharing is something which is appreciated by God. So there is nothing of which we do not possess a treasure. وَإِن مِّن شَيْءٍ إِلَّا عِندِنَا خَزَائِنُهُ وَمَا نُنَزِّلُهُ إِلَّا بِقَدْرٍ مَّعْلُومٍ. There is nothing of which we do not possess a treasure, and we do not send it down except with a known measure. So God possesses storehouses, treasures of everything that we see here. Now, Al-Kharraz is a commentator. He says, only those who do not fully believe in the truth of this verse would depend on other than God for their worldly or otherworldly affairs. That means if anyone reads this verse sincerely and understands it, then he would know that there is no one who can provide except God. Now, what are the treasures, the storehouses? According to some commentators, this is the rain which is preserved in the sky and then it rains wherever it's needed, or causes harvest to grow and provides means of livelihood. Also, according to some, it pertains to every living thing as well the means of livelihood. Some commentators think it pertains to every living thing as well as non-living things. God's treasures is also being explained as God's power, because God brings about everything through His power. And according to the thought of Ibn Arabi's school, the thought of the treasures is metaphysical, and the archetypes, that the typical examples of all things, are found in God's knowledge. So every creature, we find that from time immemorial, all the countless creatures have been supplied with their provision for their sustenance with a wise calculation, so that all of them are able to exist. This is stated by Karam Shah. وَأَرْسَلْنَا الرِّيَاحَ لَوَاقِحَ فَأَنزَلْنَا مِنَ السَّمَاءِ مَاءً فَأَسْقَيْنَاكُمُوهُ وَمَا أَنْتُمْ لَهُ بِخَازِنِينَ. We send the heavy winds and then we bring down rain from the sky, and we provide water for you to drink, water which you cannot preserve. So when the heavy winds come, we often say that, the rains are about to start. These are also, and the rain is also one of the great signs of God's blessing, because whenever there is no rain in an area where crops are supposed to grow, then there is always the fear of famine. And famine means that there is no food and water, and then people start dying. We read about this in Surah Yusuf. So rain is one of the great signs of God's blessings. And we provide water for you to drink, water which you cannot preserve. Even if we think we can preserve water, we cannot preserve all the water because it will evaporate. Then the winds also are a blessing, because they help in the pollination and the fertilization of all the plants, which are able to bring about fruit and vegetables. I think we can keep it up to here. This is verse number 22 of Surah Al-Hijr. Let us do our little prayer. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار وأدخلنا الجنة مع الأبرار يا عزيز يا غفار يا رب العالمين برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين آمين ثم آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وَلَلْآخِرَةُ خَيْرٌ لَكَ مِنَ الْأُولَى. And may your every tomorrow be better than every today. Ameen summa ameen. Thank you everyone for joining us.